I spent 6 years building the very platform that turned HarborCore Systems from a shaky Chicago startup into a $500 million tech powerhouse. 6 years of 16-hour days, missed birthdays, and postponed surgeries. I was chief infrastructure architect, the only one who knew every script, every access key, every blind spot, because I built it. The platform Navigrid, a real-time logistics engine used by major manufacturers across North America. It was the company's spine. Without it, HarborCore would collapse. And yet, there, I stood age 44 in the main conference room surrounded by senior leadership and fresh-faced interns, while CEO Leonard Briggs slid a white envelope across the table. "Congratulations, Delaney. You're being let go," he said, like he was handing out a gift card. I stared at it, then at Leonard's smug face. Around me, awkward shifting. Avoided glances. One guy smirked. "Effective immediately." He added, "You understand we're pivoting." Yeah. I understood everything, but Leonard didn't understand me. I removed my badge, and laid it gently on the table. Then I leaned in calm, controlled. "Then I said slowly, you explain to your investors why Navigrid will shut down in exactly 9 minutes. Silence." Leonard blinked. "Excuse me?" I smiled, tight-lipped, cold. "Check the live systems dashboard. The countdown's already running." Chairs creaked. One engineer pulled a laptop. Another sprinted for the server room. The HR director gasped. And just like that, the panic started. Leonard shot to his feet, knocking his chair back. "What did you do?" I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I simply straightened my coat, picked up the cardboard box they'd so generously provided, and walked calmly out the door. As I stepped into the hallway, I glanced back just once, just enough to see the CTO pounding keys like a man possessed, 2 engineers sprinting toward the server room, and Leonard jabbing at his phone, probably dialing every IT lifeline he knew. 8 minutes now, I murmured, then kept walking. Let me rewind for a moment. This didn't happen overnight. When I joined HarborCore Systems, it was just 5 of us crammed into a shared office above a laundromat on the south side. No clients, no product, just an idea scribbled on a whiteboard and a desperate founder selling vapor to investors. I took that idea and built Navigrid line by line, system by system. I designed the architecture, hardened the infrastructure, and solved the bugs that would have broken any lesser team. For years, Leonard praised me in town halls. Delaney's the heartbeat of HarborCore, he'd boast. She's irreplaceable. But 6 months ago, the tone shifted. My access to revenue data was quietly removed. Team leads started holding meetings without me. Conversations stopped when I walked in. I'd seen this pattern before. They were raising another round, bringing in cheap engineers and pushing me out repackaged as restructuring. Then I saw a draft offer letter, my title, my job addressed to a fresh out-of-college hire named Bryce. No real-world credentials, but half my salary. Leonard wasn't just replacing me, he was erasing me. My name was vanishing from internal docs, product notes, and patent filings. But I had seen it coming. Navigrid wasn't just a platform, it was a network with defenses. 6 months ago, I'd embedded a failsafe. Not harmful, just defensive. If my credentials were revoked, the system would treat it as a hostile breach. The response: automatic lockdown, no damage, no corruption, just silence. Total, impenetrable silence, just offline. Everything. Servers, APIs, front ends, back end workflows, the entire backbone of HarborCore. Gone. As I walked to the elevator, voices echoed behind me. Call it now. What the hell does she mean by offline? Is the database even backed up? I pressed the button. Calm, collected, hand steady, heart steady. Because Leonard made one fatal mistake. He thought I was replaceable. What he didn't realize was I built everything. And in exactly 7 minutes, he'd learned just how fragile his empire really was without me. By the time I reached the parking garage, I had 7 missed calls, all unknown numbers. I slid into my car and sat quietly for a moment, watching the dashboard clock tick down. 0, 0, 0, 0. And right on cue, Navigrid collapsed. Not just internal dev servers, not just QA or test beds. The full production environment went dark. Nationwide clients offline, shipment trackers gone. Warehouse automations crashed. HarborCore Systems, the tech darling of Midwest logistics, had become a blinking paperweight. I could picture it, Leonard, staring helplessly at cascading error messages, engineers scrambling terminals flashing red. My phone buzzed again. This time, a number I recognized. Mara, the operations director. One of the few decent humans in that place. Someone who probably saw this coming. I let it ring, then hit decline. Let them sweat. I drove home. No rush. Picked up coffee on the way. Even joked with the barista, who had no idea I'd just flipped the switch on a $500 million breakdown. By the time I walked through my front door, my inbox was jammed. 12 missed calls from Leonard, 6 from Mara, 2 from Mark the CTO, and 1 desperate text from an unknown number. Please call. Please! The system's down. We need to talk. I set my phone down. Ordered Thai. Opened Netflix. Put on an old sitcom I'd seen 100 times, the kind where nothing serious ever happens. Because unlike Leonard, I wasn't panicking. An hour later, there was a knock. Sharp. Repeated. I checked the peephole. Not security. Not lawyers. Not yet. But there she was. Mara, breathless. And behind her, Mark the CTO. I opened the door slowly. Just enough to lift an eyebrow. Well? Look who found my address. Mara looked tense. Delaney. We need to talk. I tilted my head. Last I checked, I don't work for you. Mark rubbed the back of his neck. Look, there's been a misunderstanding. I actually laughed. Which part? The firing? The little speech? Or the part where you tried to delete me from my own system? Mara sighed, glancing at Mark. Can we come in? Please? I paused, then stepped aside. Shoes off. They shuffled in awkwardly like kids waiting for detention. I sat down, crossed my legs, and waited. Mark started. Navigrid. The system. Catastrophic failure. Full stack lockdown I cut in. Clients screaming, investors circling. That about right? He nodded. Dead on. Mara jumped in. We know we messed up. Leonard. He acted impulsively. But this can be fixed. I leaned back. Can it? Mark leaned forward. You have to fix it. Delaney, this could destroy HarborCore. We're talking lawsuits. Millions. He trailed off, realizing how desperate he sounded. I let the silence stretch, just long enough to sting. Then I said calmly, You're right. It can be fixed. Their shoulders lifted, hopeful. I smiled slightly, but not without terms. And that was the moment they realized they weren't here to negotiate. They were here to beg. Let me guess, I said. Leonard didn't send you because he's too busy screaming into a phone or hiding under his desk? Mara glanced at Mark but said nothing. That silence was all the confirmation I needed. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, typed a short string of keys. The dashboard lit up, and there it was. A wall of red. Critical failures. Authentication chains broken. Core operations down. Node integrity shot. Mark leaned in, panicked. Wait, you still have access? I smiled. Of course I do. I built the backdoor 6 years ago. Didn't think I'd ever use it. But here we are. I turned the screen toward them. This system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what I designed it to do, protect itself. When my credentials were revoked, Navigrid assumed a hostile takeover. Standard protocol. If you'd stayed awake during dev briefings, Mark, you'd know that. He flushed. Mara rubbed her forehead. So, can you restore it? She asked quietly. I closed the laptop. That depends. On what I stepped to the window, looking out at Chicago's skyline. My city. My company. Or at least the one that should have been mine. It depends on what you're willing to pay, I said, turning back. To reclaim what you tried to take. You're serious, Mara blinked. Dead serious. You wanted Navigrid without me. Now, you know how that feels. Mark scoffed. This is extortion. I tilted my head. No, Mark. It's business. You taught me that. Silence. Finally, Mara asked, "What do you want?" I smiled. "We'll get there. But first, don't you think Leonard should be part of this conversation?" Mark opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Then Mark closed his mouth. Because he knew. They both knew. The woman they thought they could erase just became the one holding every card. 15 minutes later, screeching tires echoed from the street. If you want to see what happens when the ones they tried to silence take back everything and more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. The next chapter is already in motion. I didn't need to look. I knew exactly who it was. Moments later, a frantic knock rattled the door. 3 sharp bangs. The kind of knock that says, "Open up," before I break it down. I let it sit. 1 beat, 2. Then walked over and opened the door slowly. Just enough to see Leonard Briggs' sweaty flush collar-stained tie loose. The same CEO who'd smirked while firing me hours earlier. Now, he looked like a man on the edge of a cliff, staring down at everything he'd built. Crumbling. "You think this is funny?" He barked, storming inside without waiting. I didn't stop him. Let him stomp in like a toddler mid-meltdown. Mara and Mark stood to the side, silent. They knew better. Leonard turned, eyes wild. "Turn it back on." I raised an eyebrow. "You seem upset, Leonard." "Stressful day." He jabbed a finger toward me. "You're playing with fire, Delaney. This is sabotage, criminal. You might want to stop right there," I said, voice calm. "You're 1 sentence away from making this personal." He froze, jaw tight, breathing uneven. But behind all that bravado, I saw fear. Real fear. I walked over to my desk, opened my laptop, and spun the screen toward him. 92% of client operations offline. 137 breached SLAs. 24 lawsuits incoming. Investor group chat. Is HarborCore collapsing? I tilted my head. "Look familiar." Leonard's fists clenched. "You're bluffing." Mara shook her head. "She's not. She's not," Mara said, barely above a whisper. I checked the clients are calling nonstop. "Our inboxes are flooded." Mark added, "We had to shut down the client portal. It kept sending corrupted data. They think we've been hacked." "Oh, you were hacked," I said, folding my arms. "By your own arrogance." Leonard's fury flickered into something smaller, more desperate. "Fine," he snapped. "Name your price." I let the silence stretch, watched him stew in it, then calmly walked to my bookshelf, not to grab a laptop, not a flash drive, a folder, thick, paper, old school, untouchable. "Here's how this works," I said, placing it on the table. "I give you the protocol to bring Navigrid back online, clean, fully functional, no bugs, no backdoors." Leonard squinted. And I said, with a cool smile, "I take what was always mine. 50% ownership of all Navigrid patents, retroactive and future. Full reinstatement as CTO effective immediately. A board seat and a $15 million personal buyout for breach of intellectual trust." He opened his mouth, but I held up a finger. "One more thing, a public statement, signed by you, the board, and the investors, naming me as Navigrid's sole inventor and architect. No spin, no PR fluff. Full acknowledgement." Leonard blinked. "You're insane." I laughed. "No, theft is what you tried. What I'm offering is restitution." Silence. Mark looked ready to disappear. Mara didn't even flinch, just stared at the folder. "You don't have a choice," I said. "If Navigrid stays down another hour, HarborCore collapses. Investors pull out. Clients sue." I snapped my fingers. "Your empire gone." Leonard paced, rubbing both hands through his thinning hair. 15 million? You're insane." "No," I repeated. 15 million is the discount rate. Because without Navigrid, I said this company isn't worth $15. Leonard glared. "And if I refuse?" I didn't blink. "Then Navigrid stays offline. And you can explain to the New York Times, TechCrunch, and the SEC why your flagship system collapsed the same day you fired its only architect." I let that hang. "And should I send you the class action contacts from your investors now or later?" His mouth opened. Closed. Then opened again. Nothing came out. Mara finally spoke quiet, but steady. She's right. Leonard whipped toward her. Excuse me. She straightened her blazer. You think investors will back you over the person who built and saved this company. They'll see right through this. Through you. Through all of us. She glanced at me. Or worse, they'll think we planned it. Mark nodded. Pale. Logs show you revoked Delaney's credentials. Paper trail is clear. I crossed my arms. Clock's ticking, Leonard. He stared at me. Hatred, frustration, and finally, resignation. Fine, he growled. Draft the damn agreement. I smiled. Already did. I pulled a clean set of papers from the folder and slid them across the table. Signed by me. Just waiting on him. Leonard's hand trembled as he picked up the pen. For a second, I thought he'd toss it across the room. But he didn't. He signed. One line, then the next, and the next. Finished, he shoved the folder back toward me. It's done. I leaned in, voice low. Controlled. No, Leonard. Now, it's over. The next morning felt unreal. I wasn't walking into HarborCore Systems as an employee anymore. Not someone they could push aside. I walked in as what they never expected me to become. An owner. A board member. Their equal. Scratch that, their superior. Their superior. As the glass doors of HarborCore slid open, a wave of nervous glances rippled through the lobby. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze in midair. Junior devs peeked over monitors. Oh, they knew. Word spreads fast when the CEO has to sign away half the company's crown jewel just to keep the lights on. Mara was waiting by the elevators. She gave me a look, half relief, half amusement. Never seen Leonard that pale. She smirked. Better get used to it, I replied. Might be his new natural color. The elevator opened to the executive floor. The air felt thick, charged. Like a storm had passed, but the aftershock lingered. I stepped into the boardroom like I owned it. Because technically, I did. At the far end of the table sat Leonard. Still CEO, still pretending to have authority, but everything about him looked smaller. His tie was tight, hair freshly combed, but the confidence, gone. Delaney, he greeted, forcing a smile. Welcome back. Thanks, I said, settling into my new chair, my seat, opposite his. Though, let's be clear, I didn't come back. I leveled up. A few board members chuckled. Quickly coughed to hide it. I placed the familiar folder on the table, now stamped, notarized, and sent to every shareholder. Per the agreement, I said, flipping it open. Navigrid is fully restored. System integrity verified. Client ops back online as of 6:42 a.m. Investor confidence stabilized. Leonard nodded stiffly. Much appreciated. I tilted my head. This isn't charity. It's oversight. The word landed like a brick. I watched him flinch. Turning to the board, I continued. As of today, I am reinstated as Chief Technology Officer with a board seat and 50% intellectual ownership of Navigrid and all related systems. Whitaker, an older board member, nodded. The documents are in order. Perfect. I smiled. Now let's talk about changes. The screen behind me lit up internal threat audit report, Navigrid AI security logs. Leonard's face went pale. He knew what was coming. 6 months ago, I began Navigrid's AI-flagged irregular activity, unauthorized access attempts, midnight logins, replication of sensitive architecture. The slide changed. Timestamps, IP addresses, usernames, his usernames. A wave of murmurs rippled across the boardroom. These weren't external threats, I continued. They were internal targeting Navigrid's core repository. Specifically, I added initiated by the CEO. A gasp. Someone muttered, "Unbelievable!" Leonard jumped to his feet. This is out of context. I was reviewing systems. I raised a hand palm up. Sit. My voice was calm, steady, absolute. And for the first time in 6 years, he obeyed me. Per Section 8 of the shareholder agreement, I said any executive involved in intellectual property, tampering, sabotage, or activity deemed a conflict of interest is subject to immediate disciplinary review. I clicked again. The next slide appeared. Recommendation removal of CEO Leonard Briggs. Dead silence. The board chair Whitaker leaned forward. Delaney? You're formally recommending termination, correction, I said. I'm demanding it. Leonard's eyes darted around the room, searching for backup. But the board wasn't looking at him anymore. They were looking at me. Whitaker exhaled. Given the evidence? He glanced around. Heads nodded. It's not just Delaney's call. It's ours now. Another member? Elena added. He endangered our product, our partners, and our reputation. This isn't just a mistake. It's dismissal. Leonard slammed both hands on the table. You can't do this. I built this company. I met his stare without blinking. No, Leonard, I built it. You just signed the checks. The vote was unanimous. Effective. Immediately, Leonard Briggs is removed as CEO of HarborCore Systems. Security was called. Leonard stood trembling red with rage. For a split second, I thought he might lunge at me, but he didn't. He just glared. That same glare bullies give when they finally meet resistance and lose. This isn't over, he hissed as security took him by the arm. I smiled. Oh, Leonard, it absolutely is. I turned back to the boardroom, calm, composed, but inside I was electric. Let's begin, I said. There's a company to rebuild. Properly, this time. The news spread like wildfire. By noon, every desk at HarborCore knew Leonard was out. Delaney was back, but not just back in charge. Did you see them escort him out? She's CTO again. She owns half of Navigrid. Even the junior devs, ones who used to avoid eye contact when Leonard passed, were whispering behind screens, stealing glances as I walked by. I wasn't sure if it was respect, awe, or fear. Maybe all three. Didn't matter. There was work to do. The outage fallout was massive. Legal was buried in contracts and apology drafts. Support queues lit up like a Christmas tree. But the root issue wasn't Navigrid. It was leadership. Now that problem was solved. By 2 p.m., I was in the war room. Glass walls, whiteboards packed with diagrams, system health dashboards everywhere. Status report, I said to the engineering leads. One stood. Core systems are stable. APIs are fully restored. Database integrity confirmed. No data loss. Client portals, 87% functional. Remaining issues are cosmetic. I nodded. Push it to 100 by end of day. Then I turned to the operations manager. Legal notices. She sighed. 3 lawsuits pending. But after word spread that Leonard's out, 2 are backing down. One's undecided. I tapped my pen. Let me guess, Centurion Freight. She blinked. Yes. How did you? Because I built this company, I said, not even trying to hide the edge in my voice. I know every client better than Leonard ever did. Just as the conversation shifted towards stabilization, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, blocked ID. I considered ignoring it. Something in my gut said not to. Delaney speaking. A smooth voice answered. Male? Polished? Too polished. Ms. Rains, we should talk. Who is this? Call me Vincent. I represent interests. Interests, I echoed. You'll need to be more specific. A pause. I'm authorized to discuss a potential acquisition. I frowned. Of what HarborCore? We're not for sale. Oh no, he chuckled. Not the company. Navigrid. My stomach tightened. Not interested. It's a generous offer. Our client is prepared to pay 9 figures. I stood, walked to the window. Tell your client Navigrid isn't for sale. Not today. Not ever. His voice remained calm. You might want to reconsider. This isn't a friendly request? There it was. The shift. The velvet peeled back, revealing the threat underneath. Was that supposed to scare me? I asked, turning away from the glass. Because it's kind of adorable. Another pause. Think it over, Ms. Rains. You'll hear from us again. Soon. Click. The line went dead. I stood still, processing. then opened my laptop, logged into Navigrid's security console, and ran a full audit. Nothing. Clean. No breaches. No anomalies. Not yet, I muttered. But if someone wanted Navigrid badly enough to offer 9 figures and followed up with a threat, this wasn't random. It was organized, strategic, calculated. And if there's one thing I'd learned from building Navigrid threats that escalate, don't stop. Right then, Mara stepped into the room. Mara paused, noticing my expression. Something's wrong, I nodded. Very. I summarized the call. Her face shifted, confusion turning into concern. Then something sharper. You think they're serious? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the Navigrid dashboard. The system that had become my greatest achievement was now my biggest target. I think I said slowly, we just stepped onto a much bigger playing field. And the rules, they just changed. My inbox chimed. No sender. No subject. One line. Check your backdoor. Tick, tock. My blood turned cold. I yanked open the Navigrid server logs. Scrolled. Scanned. And there it was. A ping. External. Small. Almost invisible. But real. Someone had found it. The backdoor I built. The same one that brought Leonard to his knees. Someone was knocking. The second I saw the ping unauthorized, calculated, my hands went ice cold. Tick, tock. It wasn't subtle. It was a message, a warning, a countdown. I slammed my laptop shut, walked to the conference room door, locked it. Mara blinked. Delaney? What is it? Someone found it? I said, voice flat. The failsafe. The one I used against Leonard. Her face drained of color. Can they use it against us? I shook my head. Not yet. Not unless they have the right credentials. But if they're knocking, they're already closer than they should be. Who, she whispered. Who even has the resources to find it? I stared at the dashboard. Navigrid showed all green, all stable, but it felt like staring at a calm ocean, knowing a tsunami sat just beyond the horizon. This isn't just business anymore, I said quietly. It's something else. Something bigger. This is organized, Professional Mara said. Arms crossed, her eyes narrowing. They want Navigrid. No, I corrected. They want control of Navigrid. Of me. Of the data. Of everything. I pulled up the emergency operations terminal, something only I had access to. A hidden layer buried beneath Navigrid's core infrastructure. Typed the command initiate full system lockdown protocol confirm YN. My fingers hovered. Locking it would block everyone, even internal teams, from the system's backbone. But it would also freeze HarborCore. Delaney, Mara said softly, watching me. If you do this, it's going to hurt. Bad. I nodded. Yeah, but not as bad as letting them in. I hit Y. Lockdown initiated. Navigrid dimmed. Not offline, but sealed. Fortified. Vaulted. Nothing in. Nothing out. Then my phone buzzed. Block number. Declined. Buzzed again. Declined. Then again. An email pinged seconds later. No subject. No sender. Just one line. Wrong move. Now we escalate. Almost immediately, the firewall lit up port scans, injection probes, DDoS floods, credential stuffing. They were throwing the entire arsenal. This wasn't some kid in a hoodie. This was industrial-grade cyber warfare. Jesus, Mara muttered, watching the global attack map pulse red across 6 continents. This is bad. Really bad. It's not bad, I said, fingers flying across the keys. It's an opportunity. She frowned. An opportunity? Yeah, I said, cracking a slight grin. They just showed their hand. I opened Navigrid's Deep Trace Protocol, a stealth layer AI tracker I designed years ago. Now, I said, leaning in, we trace it. I launched Navigrid's Deep Trace Protocol, the same AI-driven analysis that had once flagged Leonard's midnight logins. But this wasn't some clumsy CEO. This was a professional assault, and that made them easier to follow. The AI flagged a pattern. Repeated routing through a cloud cluster in Zurich, then bouncing to Singapore, then Buenos Aires. But Zurich was the weak link. A leased server from a shell corporation, registered to Vanguard Strategic Holdings. I blinked. No way. Mara leaned over. Who's that? I turned to her. A private equity giant. They've been quietly buying up cybersecurity firms for years, trying to monopolize the market. So, they wanted Navigrid? I shook my head. No. They wanted me gone, so they could own it, control it, license it globally on their terms. The AI flagged something else a document. Metadata, poorly scrubbed. An internal memo, objective acquire Navigrid by any means. Phase 1, remove creator. Phase 2, force acquisition under distressed conditions. Mara's voice dropped. They backed Leonard. I nodded as the final puzzle piece clicked. He wasn't just greedy, he was leveraged. A new alert popped. Trace complete. Identity confirmed. Vincent Carter, Director of Cyber Assets. Vanguard Strategic Holdings. There you are, I whispered. I opened a secure channel, not through Navigrid, but through a secondary protocol I'd built years ago. My dead man switch. I compiled the logs, the attack traces the memo and the financial records. Then, I sent it to 3 places. 1. The FBI Cybercrime Division. 2. The SEC. 3. TechCrunch, Wired, and Forbes. Let's see how they like exposure, I muttered. Within minutes, the attack slowed, then stopped. My phone rang. Not blocked. Vincent, I answered. Delaney Rains speaking. His voice cold but shaken. That was unnecessary. No? Vincent, I said. What was unnecessary was underestimating me. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for witnessing, and for standing quietly beside me in the war room through the betrayal, the blowback, and the battle I never wanted to fight, but refused to lose. I'd love to hear what you think. Not just about the tech, about the fight, about standing up when you've been pushed down. Drop a comment, what would you have done in my shoes? Have you ever been underestimated, erased, or replaced? Share your story. Let's turn this space into something powerful, because too many of us are taught to endure quietly, instead of rising loudly. Here's what I've learned. What you build your ideas, your time, your integrity, they matter. And when someone tries to steal that from you, you don't always need to scream. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is press send on the truth. Calm, measured, undeniable. To anyone out there dealing with a betrayal at work or being made to feel small, protect what's yours. Document everything. Know your worth before they tell you you're worthless. And never, ever hand over your power for the promise of stability. Loyalty doesn't mean silence. It means defending the line between right and wrong, even when your hands are shaking. If this story meant something to you, please consider subscribing. There's more to come. Because I'm not the only one who's been here, and I won't be the last. Let's build a community that believes in justice strategy and people who refuse to be deleted. Let them come for the system. We'll be waiting.